Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's show. I'm super excited to be joined by Luke Andrews today. He's a real estate agent, a leader, an investor, a sales and negotiation coach, and also a best-selling author. Luke, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
So excited to be here, Tango. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So let's get started. I'd love to hear your story, first of all, how you got involved in the various areas that you're in, the various business that you're interested in, real estate, and also coaching.
Sure. So from a real estate perspective, I was actually in a corporate 9 to 5. I was in strategic marketing and data analytics, so about as far from real estate as you can be. I was doing pharmaceutical marketing, and I was just in a phase where I wasn't fulfilled at all. And I knew there had to be more out there. I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit and started looking for opportunities. And my wife was a licensed real estate agent. And one day she just kind of casually mentioned, like, hey, you're commuting back and forth between downtown and our house every day. If you were licensed, even part-time, you could just stop and show houses for me on your way home from work. So she wouldn't have to go out and fight rush hour traffic. And so, like I said, it kind of started as a little bit of a joke, but I got licensed, fully intended to do it part-time, but fell in love almost instantly. And so we immediately started working on a plan of how I would transition out of my corporate 9 to 5 into us, both being 1099 independent contractors working for ourselves, no benefits, no 401ks, that kind of stuff there. The plan was for, roughly 18 to 24 months, which we were able to go through. We sped up that timeline pretty significantly. We had the transition plan, but then we also had to have a secondary plan of, okay, now that I'm actually working full-time as a real estate agent, we're both depending on this. What does that look like over the next 18 to 24 months? So we created that plan as well.
How important was that? Was having that secondary plan? Like, what's the importance behind that?
It was insanely important. Anytime anybody that's ever gone into a new venture like that, and especially if they've kind of broken off on their own, the first 3 to 6 months are pretty easy. You're basically running off of adrenaline. Everything is exciting and everything is brand new and you're fired up. You're jumping out of bed in the morning. You don't need an alarm clock. But you're not necessarily back up to making the money that you were making before. And it starts to become a little bit of a grind kind of in that 6 to 20 month range. And so you have to have a plan, something that you're focused on each and every day until you get the business up and running, where it needs to be, and it's running a little more fluidly, right? Mm-hmm. So having that secondary plan was ultra important to us, not only from the financial standpoint of, okay, how are we going to pay for this? What are we going to cut back on? What are we going to do over this time? But also, what does my day-to-day look like so that I'm not waking up each morning and then starting to plan out what am I going to do? I found when I do that, I either don't get as much accomplished or, two, I spend a minimum of an hour a day. And if you're planning on, even if you're putting in a 10-hour day, that's 10% of your day that's gone planning by just not having, something in mind when you wake up to get rolling. And that 10% can be the difference between being successful in 24 months and being successful in 16 to 18 months. And so it's a matter, not having that plan has kicked a lot of people out of this business and prevented them from being able to make it as a full-time agent.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's the importance of a plan. And that's talking about the real estate agents. And you also then, I guess, from that experience, delved a little into the coaching side and sales and negotiation.
Correct. So I actually lead a team of over 20 agents. And then I have started, I had tried to set up just very simplified processes for these agents because a lot of my agents are brand new to the business and trying to teach them the skills that they need and having something that's universal, that's not case specific. And so I tried to create some negotiation and some communication rules, guidelines, whatever you want to call them, to help them through these situations, because that's what I found where most people struggle is they have this challenge in having difficult conversations, which negotiation tends to be one of those. So what could I do that I could create just something very simple, very mnemonic that they can just remember in an instant, in the moment, that can help them through that difficult situation to give them success more often than failure. And as I saw what was working and what their common questions were, what their common objections were, and what their common successes looked like, I was able to put together this course. And it was something that I felt was necessary to get out in front of a large group of people. And so I said, you know what, I can go out, I can create a course. The global economy that we're in right now with the internet, social media, Zoom, everything that we have, it makes it so unbelievably simple to go out and get the information. And as long as you have good, valuable information, people are going to want to consume it. Which it's tough because you get kind of stuck in this imposter syndrome of, okay, is my information really that good? Do people really care what I think? I'm not as far along as, GaryVee, Grant Cardone, whoever you want to say, why is anybody going to listen to me? But somebody gave me some important advice one time, and they said, all you have to be is just 2 steps ahead of the person that you're trying to teach. You don't need to be 20 steps ahead. You just need to be 2 steps ahead. And you have to have a clear path and a clear vision and be able to articulate how to get somebody, not from A to Z, but just A to C, A to D. Can you get somebody there? And so once I got over that, once I got over those fears and then kind of got over the BS story I was telling myself and all the excuses I was coming up with of, okay, why now is not the right time? Or, I need better equipment. I need a better microphone. I need a better light. I need a studio. I need a production team, a camera, whatever it is. They were really just my own insecurities peeking out. And I was just creating stall tactics that was preventing me from actually getting out and doing the work.
I think that's so powerful, your message around essentially the importance of understanding that it's not necessarily about being the perfect king or queen of whatever area it is, just being relatable and just being a few steps ahead. You can actually become much more inspirational for somebody than somebody who's way too far ahead, for example. So
exactly, that can seem unattainable when you look at where they are, and you can think, I'm never going to get there. But I can see somebody who is 20% ahead of me, and I can say, I can absolutely get there. I just need the roadmap to help get me there quicker and more efficiently. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm trying to provide.
The Coach Tribe podcast is powered by Pensight. I want to take this opportunity to tell you more about Pensight and how much value it can provide you and your coaching business.
Pensight is an all-in-one platform for coaches and educators that enables you to quickly and easily build a highly credible page and sell your knowledge with one-to-one sessions, group coaching, courses, Q&As, digital products, and bundles. Payments, scheduling, video calling, client communications, and everything else is taken care of.
All it takes is 5 minutes to set up, and it's free. It's the smartest way to kickstart your coaching business. Sign up to Pensight today at pensight.com. Awesome. And can you tell us more about the journey of actually creating the courses? What's the right way for somebody who wants to start a course or start building a course?
The right way is first realizing and understanding that you do provide value. There is something that you do better than anybody else out there and something that you can teach. And don't get so caught up in production value. People really relate to authenticity, right? They don't need this heavily produced infomercial that's out there. I've got a ring light, a decent camera, and use Zoom, and I record through there. And then that's how I created my courses. It was more about, can I organize my thoughts? Can I go out and create a proven concept? Can I have a couple of people try this and see if it works? And then at that point, just putting it all together. And it doesn't need to be super long either. I was thinking, okay, well, I've got some great information. I've got great content, but I don't have 6, 8, 10, 12 hours. I found that most people don't even want 8, 10, 12 hours worth of content. They want it quick, efficient. We're in a microwave society here where everything is given instantly. They want me to get them the information. They want to be able to go out and implement it today, and they'd like to have it in 1 to 2 hours. My best advice is don't get caught up in the production and don't get caught up in the length. 1 to 2 hours is a great sweet spot for some of these courses. Anything longer than that, you're going to have a hard time getting people all the way to the end of it.
That's super interesting. And yeah, how would you structure that 1 to 2 hours? What's the right way to kind of build that out?
I started eliminating a lot of the fluff. It's kind of like when you're you're writing a paper in high school or college, and the professor is like, hey, you need to do 3,000 words, and all of a sudden you've got a thesaurus out and you're just trying to add and add and add, and it really is just, it's unnecessary fluff. So I started eliminating some of that, and then really just got right to the heart of it. I just kind of walked through a quick introduction of, what are we going to talk about? Why is this important? And then I go through each individual step and I give them a how. And then most importantly, you wrap it up with, what is one thing that you can go and implement today, that you can watch this, you can go implement this right now to make a change in your business today, rather than, okay, well, you implement this stuff and in the next, 9 to 18 months, you're going to start seeing results from it. No, we want to give them something actionable that they can do right away.
Amazing. That actionable next step is the key takeaway then from each of these courses. And the actual courses that you have are about sales and negotiation. Can you talk about that? What are the key things, for example, for coaches or consultants or solopreneurs when they're on these sales calls? What should they keep in mind? Should they think of it as sales? What's the right mindset?
It's keeping in mind that it's all just communication. It's all just interpersonal communication. And then the more successful that you want to be, if you can master the one-to-one communication and then the one-to-few, and if you really want to be uber successful, it's that one-to-many communication that's out there. The principles and the basics are all the same. And it all just kind of comes back to how confidently and competently can you articulate your message. A lot of the things that we're doing are all about building confidence so that you come across as an expert in your field or on this particular topic. We try to dispel a couple of myths as well. So one of the key features I talk about is controlling the narrative, controlling the message, controlling the conversation, but dispelling that myth that just because you're controlling a conversation or just because you're controlling a situation doesn't mean that you're controlling another person. Because that's some of the pushback and the feedback that I got was, hey, you're out here and you're just bullying people. You're just dominating these conversations. That's not the way to do it. And it's like, hey, these things are mutually exclusive, right? Just because I'm taking control of this situation doesn't mean that I'm controlling another person, another human. I'm not coercing them into doing something that they don't want to do. Absolutely, ethics needs to be at the very top of what you're doing. But if you truly believe in the product that you're selling or the message that you're conveying, then you believe that everyone needs to hear it and they will be better off by getting it. And you need to do that by any means necessary.
Yeah, I think that's such an important first step, that what you mentioned here on, if you don't believe in your product wholeheartedly or what you can offer, then your sales won't be ethical by definition. Whereas if you feel that what your product is will provide value for that person, then it's not just sales, it's you actually just want to bring that benefit to them. I've also heard, interestingly, from some other salespeople and some other coaches and leaders that when you're going into a sales call, you should really not try to have a fixed agenda. So how would you kind of pair that with your control the narrative or control the kind of messaging?
I would agree with that. I think that you need to be prepared for some common objections, common talking points that you need, but it still needs to remain conversational so that you're able to stay in rapport with the other party. Because once you fall out of rapport, even if you do end up making the sale, you're not going to have that relationship down the road. Especially if it's an ongoing renewal-based product or one where you're hoping for referrals, if you're falling out of rapport, it's not going to be great for your business down the road. You're exactly right. You need to have some talking points and some things in mind, but just go into it with an open mind. And it's more about your body language and your presentation of yourself, which is going to lead you into the success that you're looking for.
Yeah, super interesting. Awesome. So it's important to have that balance and really kind of consider the rapport as being the first thing that you're driving for, that connection, that interpersonal relationship that you mentioned. You've also, of course, incredibly impressively been featured as a best-selling author. Can you tell us about, again, why and when did you make that decision to become an author? When should one feel ready and start writing a book, if they should? And, for what reasons should that be a use for the personal brand or marketing or
So for me, I didn't do it as a personal brand or as a marketing. It was a therapeutic outlet for me. It was a creative outlet for me. And I was at a time in my life where I was in the corporate world. It was before I made the transition over into entrepreneurship. And I knew I wanted something different. I knew I wanted something better for my life, something more. But I wasn't quite sure how to get there. And so I'm following all of these. We talked earlier about I'm here at the beginning and I'm looking at these larger than life personalities that I'm seeing on social media and trying to figure out how to get there. And some of them are telling you like, hey, you got to go all in. You got to quit your job. You have to just move to a new city, agree to work for the best of the best. You got to work for them for free for a year to learn what you can. It's all fantastic advice. And I think that is phenomenal and can be very successful. But I was married. I had 2 kids. I had a mortgage. I had bills to pay. I couldn't just quit my job, move to a new city and work for free for a year. So I thought there had to be something in between. And so I came up with this concept of, what small, very minute changes can I make on a daily basis that could turn into these exponential gains down the road. And I started doing some experimentation and it was working for me. And I happened to haphazardly make a comment to somebody that was like, hey, I think I'm going to write a book about this. And they laughed in my face. It was like, you can't write a book. It was like, you don't know anything about writing a book. You don't know anything about getting it published, about selling a book. You basically failed English class and literature class growing up. How are you ever going to do this? It's ridiculous. And that was just kind of that trigger for me of, okay, well, watch me do it. And so I did a little bit of research and found out about Amazon self-publishing and that it was actually fairly simple to go through, write this book. I had it written in about a day and a half. It is embarrassingly small with this enormous print and these huge margins, but it's 70 or 80 pages, but if you're a decent reader, you can probably knock it out in about 35 minutes. But it was something for me that was therapeutic as I was going through and writing it. It was part of my story that I wanted to share with others, and it happened to resonate with people. And I ended up on an Amazon bestseller list several years ago. And it was just a cool little experience. And again, it was never really something I used for marketing or anything at all, but it's a fun anecdote to tell at parties or to be on podcasts to say, hey, I hit an Amazon bestseller list. And I still get some residual income from it. So, it's been super beneficial.
What are the ways that you recommend kind of like people can harness different energies like that to achieve what they need to achieve?
Sure. I think first and foremost, you need to make sure that you're using it as fuel, but you're not just overly consumed with it, right? Because then you end up either on this vendetta of where it's eating you away from the inside, or you get so focused on the revenge aspect of it that you don't actually fulfill the mission that you're going for, right? Like I tell my agents, and part of the negotiation course is that you have to find a way to remove the emotion while maintaining the passion. And so that's what I was able to do. I was able to get rid of that. Hatred's a strong word, but just the hatred of that moment, but still have the passion that drove me forward to get the job done that needed to get done.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. Without the emotion, but with the passion. Yeah, amazing takeaway. And you also, of course, now have a team of agents working under you. Some of the coaches who are on Pensight will, of course, be growing and they'll want to hire VAs, hire a team. What are some key tips and things to take into account when you're hiring?
Sure. So for me, it's been about hiring for culture fit, less about true skill set, because most of the skills that we're working with and I found in most companies can be taught relatively easily, as long as you have someone that is a self-starter who's willing to take on this quality that I call productive independence, which is like, hey, they're not afraid to just jump in and start rolling without having all of the answers, or, they're not waiting for all the lights to be green before they hit the gas. So they jump in, they get rolling, but they also know like, hey, I'm down the road. Now I'm stuck. Now I need to ask for help. So they have that self-awareness. Unless I'm bringing them on for either a short-term project or a very, very specific project, then I need a very, very specific set of skills.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Yeah. So it's kind of the character of the person is more important than potentially the technical skills required for the role, since that's something you can actually teach and build up within them. And so you mentioned self-starter and self-aware. How do you know, or how can you tell when you're recruiting someone or interviewing them that they are, those things?
It's very hard. It is very, very hard. Something I like to say, everybody's on their best behavior in an interview, right? Everybody's the hardest worker. Everybody comes in first. Everybody stays the latest. Everybody is phenomenal at what they do. Over time, you start to get a sense for people, but you also have to realize that you're going to have some swings and misses, right? And I had to get over some of the ego that I had in the beginning of, I didn't want to admit that I missed something in the interview process, right? And I held on to people longer than I needed to. And it wasn't good for our business and our culture, but it also wasn't good for that person either. But I held on to them thinking, okay, I'm not willing to make a mistake. And even if they are falling behind, I'm a good enough coach. I'm a good enough leader that I can coach them up where they need to be. It's just the wrong attitude. At a certain point, people just don't want what you have there. And so you have to be okay with that. But I mean, to really specifically answer your question, it's insanely difficult. I like to ask a lot of questions about, tell me about a time when, or give them scenarios and situations, because I like to see what their thought process looks like. It's not about the answer itself or coming to a right answer. I want to see how they approach problems, how they approach challenges. And then, when they ask for help, how they ask for help, those things there.
Yeah, definitely. It's not an easy job. And you also mentioned kind of dealing with your ego and essentially learning when it's time to let go. What's the right time, once you've given somebody a chance to kind of say that, we should part ways?
I don't subscribe to the mindset of hire slow, fire fast kind of thing. I hire people that are right when they're right. I want as many of the right people and none of the wrong people. But the fire fast aspect of it, I mean, if they're really just a terrible culture fit, if they're that culture cancer, that you hear about, we let them go pretty quickly. But if they're falling short of expectations, it's about having a couple of meetings, conversations, and, bringing it to their attention of, hey, these are our expectations here. Now we've really tightened up our onboarding process so that expectations are laid out very well in advance. But we also, we have regular check-ins and letting them know, like, hey, we need you doing A, B, and C. And then if they're still unwilling to do it, unable to do it, or even in some cases unwilling to admit that they're doing it, then we start the process of coaching them out. We give them an opportunity. We show them, hey, here's where you're falling short. Let's see how you're turning around. And you don't have to turn it around completely from day one, because I realize, especially in a sales role, if you've fallen short of your sales goal, that's difficult to make up in a week or two. But I want to see that you're moving in the right direction. And I want to see that you're now on pace to be hitting at a very minimum our minimum standards.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing those golden nuggets. For the final piece, I want to do the Pensight Rapid Fire 5. So these are 5 questions that you don't know, and we want to see what your answers are. So first question, if anything, what would you change if you were to start your journey again?
Oh, I would have taken action and taken steps significantly faster. You can go so much faster than you think that you can, and you can do so much more than you think you can. I got caught up in the how rather than focusing on my why and just getting in and just getting started.
Love that action bias. Second question, what's one belief you've changed recently?
One belief that I've changed recently, that people don't care what I have to say. Again, we talked earlier about, I was comparing myself to, 40-year industry vets who are 100x what I am at this point, and not focusing on the fact that I am 2 to 5 steps ahead of 99% of the people that are out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And dealing with that imposter syndrome is so crucial. For the third question, who or what are you most grateful for?
Oh, I am so grateful for my wife, who is unbelievably supportive. She has been supportive every time I've wanted to start a new venture, every time that I've wanted to leave my corporate job and move over to this, unstable, quote unquote, 1099 role. And then as I want to take on this, coaching courses, all of those things, she has been phenomenally supportive. Couldn't do it without her.
Amazing. It's so important to have that support system as well. The fourth question is, what's one book everybody should read?
There's a book that I love. It's whether you love him or hate him, but Arnold Schwarzenegger, his autobiography called Total Recall. It is a very long book. I do the audiobook version. It's about 22 hours long. But it is just not it's not overly in your face about it, but littered with all of these undertones about setting goals and sticking to your plans and working hard even when the odds are stacked against you. Plus he just has an uber interesting story. He's done so much throughout his life, and he's very open, honest, very, very candid and vulnerable throughout the book. But I always walk away re-energized about setting and achieving goals after I get done reading it. I read it once to twice a year.
So cool. I'm definitely going to bump it on my reading list now. And for the final question, if you could have one message on a billboard for the most people possible to see, what would you write on that billboard?
Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. You can't count on anybody else to do it for you. But it's interesting. It's like you start off with, you can't count on anybody else to believe in you for you. But the more that you believe in yourself, the more others start to believe in you. It is this snowball effect. Where just like in my book, you take these small steps and you end up with these exponential gains that are out there. And it all starts with that confidence and that belief in yourself. And once you have that confidence, you can achieve just about anything. The rest of it gets super easy.
So powerful. Thank you so much, Luke. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. If you're interested in speaking to Luke, seeing his social media links, you can find it all under his Pensight profile. It's at pensight.com/x/Luke Andrews. We'll have the link in the show notes, of course. Luke, it's been an absolute pleasure having you, and I look forward to speaking to you again.
Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers.
Hope you enjoyed this episode.
We'll be releasing every Wednesday, so make sure to
Subscribe
and rate us 5 stars where you're listening to this show to give others a chance to discover it too.